This is Diana Sullivan, and I have a new pattern today. This striking dragon scarf is great to knit with self-striping or scrappy yarn. It has really interesting and useful techniques. It has an I-cord cast on, automatic wrap short row triangles, a row with 2 tensions, and decreasing multiple stitches easily and beautifully. The deep textures here were created by flipping the work, which can be done with a garter bar or waist knitting. This pattern is available standard gauge or mid gauge or bulky gauge, and it's a digital download available at www.dianaknits.com. It comes with a step-by-step video with all the techniques. Here on YouTube, though, I'm doing short demos for some useful techniques included in the scarf. I've been making these dragon scarves. This one was made on my bulky machine using Caron latte cakes. Now, the technique I want to show you today is how to cast on using I-cord. This is really a long scarf, really. I made a little oversized in the latte cakes. So I need a long piece of I-cord, and even though I work along the I-cord a triangle at a time, and I keep using this much more of the I-cord each time I make a new triangle, I need a long piece, and I need it so long that I can just unravel the extra when I get to the end. I don't want to count perfectly. I want to have a little more than I need. Now, this is a really easy technique, casting on with I-cord, and that's what I want to show you today. This machine happens to be a Studio 860. It's a mid-gauge machine, and if you've got a studio machine, I don't usually teach on them, so today I get to show how to make an I-cord on a studio machine. So let's get in there close, and let's pick out some needles. Kind of in the middle of the machine. I'll have a needle and then a space and another needle. And I'm going to set this up on a tighter tension than the rest of the pattern. Since I'm planning to use tension 7 for my scarf, I'm going to roll down to tension 5 for this I-cord. It's going to turn out looser than tension 5 because it's going to slip in one direction. So experience has taught me to do that. Now, before I start, let's have a quick look at the yarn. I have a big old cake that I've rewound onto a cone. I rewind everything. It helps so much with my knitting if I've rewound and made sure I didn't have knots or anything. This was one of those irresistible self-striping yarns, and I'm in the store and it jumps in my cart. Then I bring it home and puzzle over what to make with it. Well, I think this scarf is a great thing to make with these self-striping yarns. You are going to need about 5 ounces of a group 3 yarn if you've got a mid-gauge. If you've got a bulky or a standard, those directions are in the pattern, and you're still going to need about 5 ounces for the standard and a little bit more for the bulky. It all depends on how long you want your scarf to be, and you could certainly make this scarf out of scraps because you could make the different triangles different colors if you want, and that'll be really smart looking. So I'm going to thread my yarn and show you the I-cord. The way I cast on is extremely simple. I have just 2 needles out, but they're 1 needle apart. So there's a needle in work, a needle back out of work, and another needle in work. And I thread my machine, and I knit from right to left. Then I bring out this middle needle into work, plus an extra needle on the right. It's going to be a 4-stitch I-cord. And then I'm going to knit to the right. Now that funny little cast on is going to gather up at the bottom. I'll just put a clothespin on it for a little weight. I'll add a heavier weight later, but this will get me started. And I am going to set the machine to slip in one direction and knit in the other direction. And that is done on this studio by moving the wheel here to the SJ and by pulling this back lever forward so that it'll slip going to the left. The back lever on the right is back. So over I go and it slips. And then I come back and it knits, which is exactly what I wanted. Now I'm going to put my row counter on 0, 0, 0 because I have to do this a long time for the actual project. How many rows you do on the row counter is in the pattern, but I want you to keep in mind that it takes 2 rows to make 1 trip around the I-cord. I-cord is one of my favorite techniques. I find so many uses for it. Let's get in close and look at it. So again, as I go to the left, it slips. As I come back to the right, it knits. I have to just go far enough so the machine gets past the needles, but I can go pretty fast. It's also helpful if I go far enough to hit that row counter. As I knit, this gradually closes, and it turns into the same kind of cord that you might have made when you were a kid and you were using a spool with 4 nails. And after I have a little bit of length on it, I like to put a heavier weight. So I've got a claw weight here, and I'm going to do this a long time until I have a long piece of cord, as long as my scarf will be, and then I will show you how I can use that to cast on, which is a really nice looking cast on. I think you'll get a real kick out of it. So let me make my long cord, and then I'll be right back to show you how it can be used for casting on. Each time my weight hit the floor, I picked it up and brought it up close to the knitting again, and then I kept going until it hit the floor again. And now I have this really long cord. It's puffy and soft, and I like it. And you know, I don't know until I get there how I'm going to like it. Now, this is going to be a little tricky to work with. I want to be able to unravel these stitches. They need to go on some kind of a holder. You could use a hand knitting stitch holder, you could use a safety pin. I've been pretty happy with a hairpin, an old-fashioned bobby pin will hold them, and then later you can unravel the length of cord that you do not need. So I'm going to get something to hold these and put it on them. Now in this video, I'm just pulling out a random number of needles, and I'm going to use the I-cord for casting on. I just want you to see what a great job it does. So I'm going to start here with my finished end of the I-cord. That one does not unravel. The one that I put on the safety pin does. And then I'm going to take a transfer tool, put the tool in a loop, and put that loop on a needle. And then staying in the same column of stitches, I'm going to get the next loop. And I can even get several at a time. Can I get 3? Let's see. And put them on. So it's a fast cast on, really. And I'm only getting 1 loop. You might think, oh, I want to get a whole stitch, but 1 loop works just fine for me. I've got a few more here, so let me put them on too. I don't skip any loops, and I try to stay in a straight line. I think you can see that this is a straight line running right down the knitting. You push that back, I think it'll show even better that that is a straight line. I'll zoom in here in a second so you can see it as well as possible. Okay, so I've cast on a few needles, and I just going to turn my tension up, brought the tension over to 7, And I'm going to change the carriage. Brought my tension over to 7 and I put it back on plain knitting. I don't want to be slipping to one side anymore, and I'm putting my levers back too. And now I'm going to thread the carriage with the yarn and just knit a few rows and take it off so you can see what a great way this is to cast on. Now let me zoom in closer. I want you to see, if at all possible, that this is running on a straight column of stitches. I was just a little bit careful and got the loop right below the other loop, thinking of this vertically. So anyhow, I'm threaded up and I'm going to knit a few rows. We'll just take this off and see how this works as a cast on. Okay, I've come off, and on the purl side it looks like that. So it is beautiful on both sides. It really looks good. It's got a little bit of weight to it. It is thicker. It's double compared to the rest of the knitting, which typically is really good for a cast on. And I'm unrolling it here on the right side so you can see it. So there you have it, how to cast on using I-cord, and it really does a nice job. If you like this content, do me a favor, like and subscribe. That also helps us to get YouTube to pick up more of these videos for people that have maybe never seen machine knitting before.